Hello and welcome to another devotion on this devotional series called Wholehearted, about living with an open heart to God and living sincerely with gratitude and a heart that is healed and made well. Not only live wholeheartedly, but to have our hearts made whole. Well, I wanted to encourage you just on one very simple thing today, and it is found in Matthew 9:22. It's a story of the woman who was struggling for many, many years with the issue of blood. And in Matthew 9:22, Jesus turned to her after she had touched the hem of his garment or the edges of his cloak, it says. He says, "Take heart, daughter, your faith has healed you." And the woman was healed at that very moment. Now, the healing was for her to become clean. You see, as a woman who was subjected to an issue of blood for so many years, she would not have been able to even form part of the community at all. She would have been an outcast. She would have not been able to go to temple, to be able to touch other people, touch other people's belongings or their food or anything like that. So you can imagine how difficult it was for this woman, firstly, just to press through the crowd, get to Jesus while Jesus was already on another 911 emergency with Jairus' daughter. And Jesus notices her. And what's really awesome in this moment that should encourage you is that instead of when she touches Jesus, Jesus becomes unclean, which is what the law would have told him to do, would have told him was happening. Instead, she becomes clean by touching Jesus. See, lots of times we think that because of something I've done wrong has made me dirty, and therefore I should not form part of the rest of the world. And because I'm unholy, I can't go to church, or I can't see that person, or I'm not allowed to pray. I can't take part in righteousness or in something good like this woman. I can't have no part in serving, leading, doing something, being in a small group or leading a small group, because it's something that makes me feel unclean. But I wanted to encourage you that Jesus takes the unclean and makes it clean. It is to be under law or under works to think that whatever you touch because you're unclean becomes unclean. It's the opposite. When we touch Christ, we become clean. You see, Mark 6:56 says, "Wherever he went, into villages, towns, or countrysides, they placed the sick in the marketplace. They begged him to let them touch just even the edge of his cloak. And all who touched it were healed." Now, there's so much power in the imagery of the edge of Jesus' cloak. Now, a Israelite or a Jewish man during that time would have worn sort of a three-piece, at least, garment. It would have been like just sort of a normal garment, like a tunic or a robe, thrown over their body, and sandals, and then a cloak or a garment of sorts. Now, this garment was square, usually, and they would receive it at their coming of age. And on the edge of this garment, there'd be tassels. They instructed to have the tassels on the edges of their garments as a remembering of the Lord their God and remembering the 10 commandments he gave them and the fact that he delivered them. You can read about them in Numbers and Deuteronomy. They're supposed to be twisted white threads with purple or blue in between on the edges of the garments of the males. Now, some took this way too far. So some of the men would have made elaborate edges of their robes to display some sort of status or significance or importance or authority. It was a bit of a show. So some of the teachers of the law and the Pharisees didn't really like that Jesus also had some tassels on the edges of his garments. But the woman, this is what the woman would have touched: these tassels, these edges. And what they called the edges of the four corners of this garment were the wings of the garment. So each of the corners were called wings. And this moment in Matthew 9 is the fulfillment of a prophecy in Malachi 4. It says this in verse 2, "But for you who revere or worship my name, the Son of Righteousness will rise with healing in his wings, and you will go out and frolic like a well-fed calf." So Christ, the Messiah, will rise with healing in his garments. And we, his people who revere his name, will go out and frolic or be set free, I think, is the image that is being used here. Be able to dance, be totally set free, have our hearts freed from the chains which hold it. Now, isn't that beautiful? We know Jesus, who has healing in his wings, and he's made his dwelling amongst us and given us his Spirit. Now, the only thing I really wanted to encourage you with today, it's just you and me here right now, is to tell you the following. You are made clean. You are not dirty. You see, the blood of Christ has washed us from all unrighteousness. And this woman, as soon as she touched Jesus, became clean. You are not unclean. There's a scripture in Corinthians, I think it's 1 Corinthians 5:7, that says, you are unleavened, or without sin. So be ye unleavened. It says, you are without sin. So act like you already are. It's saying, you are clean, you are not dirty. Now act in accordance with your cleanness. So I wanted to encourage you that if something happens in your heart, something feels like it's crept in, walk on and let the dirtiness wash off and fall off like water off a duck's back, because Christ has made you clean. Thank you very much for listening and for watching. We hope to see you on Sunday at all of our locations. Have a wonderful weekend, Father's House. Cheerio.